Welcome, everybody. Take a walk with me. It's time for you guys to open your eyes to the value of incarcerated lives.
These are the four men that we are really focused on at first, but we know that there are many, many men in prison like these four who have completely turned themselves around. And tonight is the beginning of a movement to repair our prison system and to chip away at some of the chronic problems.
For many of these individuals, they were young, they did something dumb, or perhaps they didn't, but they were just wrapped up with the wrong people at the wrong time. But nonetheless, they're being judged, sentenced, and convicted for one of the worst days in their entire lives. Now, while it's true that they may have made mistakes and they are suffering the consequences of their actions, that does not mean they have not made efforts to change. They have either sought higher education, they have found faith or spiritual enlightenment, or they're even acting as mentors to some of the younger inmates, providing them a better path at life.
And individuals, their prefrontal cortex is the last area of their brain to develop. And that is the part of their brain that puts the brakes on. And, they may be feeling very passionate about what they're about to do. And that prefrontal cortex says, that's not a good idea. And they don't have that. It's important that we start treating individuals between 18 and 25 as young people with separate considerations.
I was convicted in 1993 of first-degree felony murder for aiding and abetting, being an accessory to another individual. I was given a sentence of life without parole. My co-defendant, who committed the crime, he received a 12-year sentence. If you agree to do any crime, in my case, I agreed to a robbery. And during the course of the robbery, the victim was shot. No matter if I had the intent to kill, the intent to do great bodily harm, or I should have known that I was creating that situation, that homicide or killing could have taken place. It's a very broad-based spider web that can catch you at any time for any role. Even if you just open the door of the car when a person comes back from committing a robbery where someone was killed, you can be charged. In 2015, I completed my bachelor's in criminal justice, and I'm currently working on 2 graduate programs, a master's in business administration from Adams State University in Colorado, and I'm the first incarcerated person to be approved for an online program at the Chicago Theological Seminary. It's a master's in divinity. Everyone has the ability within themselves. I don't believe everyone has the means, whether it's financial or support from other individuals as mentors or someone that can actually help them take the right steps to get to that end result of being fully rehabilitated or transformed.
All he ever did when he was young and growing up was play hockey, and he just got messed up with the wrong people. He wasn't a bad person to begin with, but he sure has done a lot of stuff since he's been in prison. That's the way I feel.
So I kind of want to take you back a few years so I can illustrate how much things have progressed since the inception of TARP. And about 3 years ago, here at Jackson Prison, 4 other men and myself were sitting around a table having a conversation about prison reform. Would we ever find a doorway to freedom? Is reform, justice reform, especially for people that are labeled violent offenders, possible? David Hudson was with me. He had 32 years in. Chet Shepard had over 45. Everett Dyson had about 34 years in, and Mr. McGruff had 24, and I had 23. I was the young buck at the time. And the conversation went something like this. David Hudson Bay was really upbeat about, he was organizing a rally at Michigan's Capitol against death by incarceration. And he was hopeful that that rally would make some lasting change. Our buddy, James McGruff, he was our local legal guy, and he was kind of a grumpy one. And as usual that day, he cantankerously interjected, people out there don't care about us in here. They just want to see us die quietly. But James had come to prison a year before me out of Wayne County also. And I had immersed myself in programs, and he took a different path. And he had stayed in the prison's law library, filing appeal after appeal. Well, they had all failed. And he was becoming bitter about accepting the fact that he was going to die in prison. But that day, I'm happy to say that our wise man of the group was Chester Shepard. He would remind us of the men whose appeals had been granted. The lawyers had got them out. He always did this somehow, even as his own appeals had failed, and his own commutations were denied. Getting my case overturned was not something I wanted to do. I didn't want to regain my freedom that way. So I spoke up to our group and I said to him, I don't want to be released by some loophole in the law. Why can't people just see that we're not the same broken beings we were decades ago? I just want a second chance based on who I am. Why can't it simply be about mercy?
Can you raise your hand if you did something you shouldn't have when you were younger? Okay, well, I guess we were lucky to be in the place that we were and not in the place where some of these guys were. None of us want to suffer the consequences of our mistakes for our whole lives. And that's why we have TARP.
Welcome, everybody. Take a walk with me. It's time for you guys to open your eyes to the value of incarcerated lives. The Adolescents Revive with the campaign, the Mercy Campaign. Get it through your brain.